please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Hi there, good morning and welcome. You're watching Power Breakfast on CNBC TV18. I'm Manglam Malu and with me in the Mumbai News Centre is Ekta Batra. Good morning, Ekta. Yesterday we did manage to hold above that 10,300 mark, and at the same time the good news is overnight we're getting positive cues from the US. They've started to close at record highs again.
Yes, well, Manglam, we have a lot to work with in terms of cues this morning.
Let's take a look at the Asian markets. They are trading well in the green as we speak, because taking overnight cues coming in from the Wall Street, where the stocks rose to record highs after a rally in tech names lifted the broader market. Also, the CBOE Wix was at the lowest levels in the last 2 weeks, so a lot less fear than there was. And take a look at the Japanese markets. That one is up about 0.8%, and that's despite the strength that we're seeing in the dollar yen. If you take a look at the stocks that are moving there, you have the likes of Toyota and Mitsubishi, all the exporters really doing well. Korean markets up 0.4%. The Straits as well as the Taiwanese indices should also come up for you. Both of them trading fair in the green with a gain of about 0.5% each. And the SGX Nifty, as a result of that, indicating a fairly positive start as far as our markets are concerned. A pop of nearly 20 points at the open. And a day after labeling North Korea as a state sponsor of terrorism, the Trump administration levied additional sanctions against Kim Jong-un's regime and its enablers, which include 3 Chinese trading companies, more important to investors. However, are China's self-imposed actions to ensure financial stability and transition to a more sustainable growth track? Well, CNBC's Sherry Gang reports on that.
We've got 13 Chinese as well as North Korean entities, companies as well as individuals being on this sanctions list by the U.S. Treasury Department. This comes just one day after we've been warned by U.S. President Trump himself. And also the Treasury Department updated on its website the fact that it's redesignating North Korea as a state sponsor of terrorism. So just to give you an idea of what kind of companies that we're dealing with here, well, apart from the common denominator of these names, many of them work operating in the area of Dandong. So one example is, again, Dandong Donghyun Industrial, and basically the Treasury Department says the company had exported $28 million worth of goods in recent years, including equipment that was used with that's associated with nuclear reactors development in North Korea. So the idea is maximizing pressure and isolating and cutting off this outside sources of revenue and trade, according to Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin.
Okay, well, let's tell you what happened on Wall Street. U.S. markets rose to record highs, as we mentioned earlier, as a rally in technology lifted the broader market. So investors also cheered strong quarterly results from top companies in corporate America. CNBC's Hampton Pearson gets us a wrap of all what took place on Wall Street.
U.S. stocks seeing gains on Wall Street. The Dow up by 160 points, the S&P up 16, the Nasdaq higher by 71 points. Meg Whitman is stepping down as the CEO of Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. The HPE president, Antonio Neri, will take over as CEO in February of 2018. Shares of the company fell nearly 8% in after-hours trading. Some bullish numbers hitting the housing market. Sales of existing units rose 2% in October. That's better than expected as hurricane-related disruptions dissipated. The move higher last month comes after the last reading in September showed a decline on an annual basis for the first time since July of 2016. The retail sector in focus this Tuesday, Lowe's beating the streets this past quarter, outshining expectations in the wake of hurricanes. The home improvement retailer seeing strong results in appliance sales, despite a changing landscape that finds Amazon and JCPenney as incoming players in that field, while former mainstays face liquidation, like H.H. Gregg. That's the action from the U.S. market. You have a good trading day in India. Back to you in Mumbai.
Okay, but will this rally in the U.S. market sustain? Let's hear out some opinion from David Kelly of JP Morgan.
If you want to think about, well, why is the market going up, I think the key thing to focus on is why, not so much why people are piling in, as why people aren't piling out I mean, if there was an index of investor inertia here, I mean, think about it. You've got enormous embedded capital gains. You don't have anywhere good to go to in terms of fixed income or cash or even other alternative assets. And the VIX is very low, so you don't even have the volatility that normally scares people into a move. So there's just nobody piling out, and so any money going in is just pushing this market higher. And, you know, if it's sort of a funny word to use, but I think we may have sort of a durable bubble here where the market can actually move up to higher valuations, which are getting a little unhinged from the fundamentals, but it could keep on going because it's very hard to get out in this market. I think the bubble is just gradually growing. I mean, this is kind of like a turkey that you're leaving in the oven too long here. It's just gradually overcooking here. But what you can see is overall stock value, forward PE ratios running about 18 times, actually a little bit above that now, which is high relative to the last 25 years.
All right, shifting focus across the Atlantic then in Europe too, markets ended higher as investors dismissed any negative concerns surrounding a political impasse in Germany. In fact, the German index itself was the key outperformer among the three frontline indices, as the UK's index closed up by about 0.3%. The French CAC rose about 0.5%, but the German index, despite the threat of fresh elections that failed to dent investor bullishness, the DAX closed about 0.8% higher, and that was primarily on account of good numbers coming in from Volkswagen. That one was up 3%. As a result of that, the other auto companies like Porsche, which is also owned by Volkswagen, gained about 2.8%. But in the peripheral markets, Spain's index, the Spanish index IBEX, that one fell about 1/3%, but the Greek ATHEX was up about 1.6%, outperforming the other peripheral indices. But in important cues to watch, UK Finance Minister Philip Hammond is set to deliver his second budget speech as Theresa May's government struggles with political and fiscal instability. The good news though, risk on is really on, because if you take a look at the emerging markets pack, yesterday the crude prices did spike, but if you take a look at the Russian index as well as the Brazilian index, both of them up nearly 1.7% each. So there is risk on, which is on.
Okay, well, moving on. Following a week-long political standoff, Zimbabwe President Robert Mugabe has finally resigned shortly after Parliament began an impeachment process to end his rule. The 93-year-old clung on for a week after an army takeover and expulsion from his own ruling party, which also told him to leave power. Thousands of Zimbabweans poured onto the streets of Harare to celebrate his resignation. Mugabe has resigned after nearly 4 decades in power.
And in the currency space, the dollar turned broadly lower, moving in line with declining US 10-year Treasury yields and consolidating gains coming in from Monday in light trading ahead of Thursday's Thanksgiving holiday in the United States.
In commodities, crude oil prices have risen, supported by expectations of an extension next week to OPEC output cuts, but prices remained under pressure from signs of higher output in the United States.
In the precious metal space, gold bounced up lightly after a weaker US dollar gave the bullion a boost after the previous trading session's sharp decline and as investors awaited the minutes of the Federal Reserve meeting held in November. Gold also benefited from some safe haven buying from investors, worry of political crisis in Germany, Europe's largest economy.
Okay, well, the Global Entrepreneurship Summit is being held in Hyderabad later this month and promises to bring together the world's best innovators and entrepreneurs under one roof. Ivanka Trump, United States President Donald Trump's daughter and advisor, has dubbed the upcoming Global Economic Summit as a testament to the strong friendship between the US and India. In a telephonic press briefing, she added that the US would like to grow the economic and security partnership with India, and the summit was part of that goal.
This year's GSE, co-hosted by the U.S. and India, is a testament to the strong friendship between our two peoples and the growing economic and security partnership between our two nations. Entrepreneurship, domestically and abroad, is a key priority for this administration. I think when Prime Minister Modi came to the White House, the President expressed the sentiment that India has a great friend and partner in the United States, and that we would like to grow our economic and our security partnership. And this is this is part of that goal of creating a stronger relationship, but also going into the world and recognizing the important impact that our leadership has.
Let's discuss what took place in the markets yesterday. Back home, the markets gave up gains in the last hour of trade, with the Nifty ending below the 10,350 mark. The Sensex ended with gains of around over 100 odd points. The banks underperformed. They actually gave up gains and ended absolutely flat in yesterday's trading session. So overall, yes, while it was off the day's high, it was still a green close for the Nifty. Naveen joins in to give us all of the cues we need to work with this morning. Naveen, morning, over to you.
Good morning, Ekta. Yeah, we were ended on a green, but remember the ending was at the low, closer to the low point of the day, with the banks underperforming. Now, talking about the levels, remember 10,268, that level, that will be a critical support in the near term. This is the same level which we reached in terms of the low on last Friday. Also, the FNO data, that indicates that this is what the level will be for the near term support. Remember yesterday, 10,300 levels, that is where the put writing maximum happened, with the premium of close to 50 rupees. On the other hand, institutional flows, they are following the same pattern. FIs are selling close to 730 crore. They sold in yesterday's cash market. Meanwhile, DIs, they came in for the rescue with the buy of close to 830 crore. Also, a bit of vulnerability can be seen in the mid-cap stocks. Remember the FNO band data, that suggests that there are 14 stocks in the FNO band. So that brings in a bit of vulnerability for that fact. On the other hand, talking about the positive news, yeah, the futures premium, that is around 25 rupees versus 21 rupees. So that comes in as a big positive. On the other hand, global clues clearly suggest that we will have a green opening to the market. Yesterday's trade, European index, they ended with the gains of close to 0.5% higher. On the other hand, Dow Jones also ended at 0.7% higher. In fact, back home, SGX Nifty also indicates an opening closer to the 10,380 level. So overall, see a green opening for our indices. Back to you.
All right, Naveen, and stocks, what are the stocks you're watching out for in trade today?
Well, Mangalam, we have ended our earnings season for Q2, but nevertheless, there have been a lot of stocks which will be in focus in today's trade, beginning with NCC, BGR Infra as well as NCC. Both these companies have one order for mining development in Talaipalli coal block, and the overall revenue expected from this is close to 1,000 crores. So keep an eye on in NCC. On the other hand, Ajanta Pharma, that company has received the final approval for one of their drugs from the US FDA. So some positive for Ajanta Pharma. On the other hand, Saturn Credit Care, 24th November is the date when the board will be meeting for the issuance of securities on private placement basis. Expect the stock to be in focus in today's trade. On the other hand, Dabur, one stock that you clearly track very closely. So they have cut down the price. This is basically the passing off of prices to the customers on the back of lower GST. They cut shampoo, air freshener as well as skincare products. On the other hand, the peer group like Nestle as well as Jyoti Labs will be in focus on the back of any announcement expected on the similar lines. PVR, remember there was an FIR filed for forgery by Elan Group, but the company came out with a notification stating that these allegations are baseless. Last but not the least, all the Future Group stocks, the likes of Future Lifestyle, Future Consumer will be in focus. Remember, the chairman yesterday unveiled the 3.0 vision for the company, wherein they expect 10,000 stores to be opened by 2022. Back to you.
Remember, 4 months after the rollout of GST, some green shoots. After the government warned companies to pass on the GST benefits, we have the first set of price cuts coming in from FMCG companies, and this is after the CBEC, chairperson of the Central Board of Excise and Customs, Vanaja Sarna, had written to them pointing out the need to immediately revise the maximum retail price on products in the lower GST bracket. Remember, most of these FMCG companies, the prices were cut from 28% to 18% with effect from 15th November. Most of these companies, they had cut the prices, but yesterday they did put out an information in the press with regards to the official announcement of these price cuts. Sapna Das had spoken to Ms. Sarna yesterday, and here's a slice of that conversation.
After the Guwahati meeting, a whole host of, I would say, items have been reduced in duty. So the focus was basically the consumer. So I wanted to make sure, and the government wanted to make sure that whatever the decision was taken by the GST Council gets passed on to the consumer, because that was the whole purpose of the reduction. Therefore, I wrote this letter, And even before that, the finance minister had been appealing to industry. In fact, the revenue secretary has also been saying so. And I just said it in the form of a letter, and I thought, let me address the top 100-odd, industries in this area, just to ensure, and all I wanted was a little assistance. So mine was more in the form of an appeal that, and this, a lot of people have asked me that, do you think this is interfering in pricing and interfering in the company? It's not like that. The idea was that the FMCG guys, we're all in it together, wanting to allow the consumer to get the benefit. So it's really work together. And that's exactly the cooperation I've been asking for.
Ma'am, any other sectors that you'll be covering or you'll be looking at as of now, ma'am?
I've already written to some restaurants as well, and I plan to write to some more as well, especially the bigger chains, that here again, we, get these odd, and all of you would have got it, you get these WhatsApp messages about the way the rate has gone up, or when duties come down, why are we paying more? So again, just to sensitize everyone that I know that you've had an ITC before and you may not have it now, but your rate has also come down substantially. So some way the consumer has to see that benefit.
Ma'am, Dabur has already reduced their prices by around 9% on an average across product categories. So is that kind of an endorsement that probably the message is already working?
Let me just say that's good, because I think, it's not like I believe that FMCG companies also believe that it should be passed on. The question here is to what extent can they involve themselves in that passing on. But if that is the case, and I think if I have also requested in my letter that they should give wide publicity so that, consumers and retailers and everybody knows what to expect. So I'm hoping that all this will work, and companies will work with us to ensure that that benefit is passed on.
Okay, and here is what the Dabur management had to say on the impact of the price cuts.
We have taken a 9% decrease in the price on those categories where the rates have come down from 28 to 18%, and that we have already taken last week. This is just a reconfirmation that we have communicated that we have taken action with regard to reducing the price post 15 November on account of the GST rate being reduced from 28 to 18. There is no impact on the margins because the rate benefit has been passed on, so there is no impact on the margin. Margins remain stable as it is.
All right, that was the management of Dabur indicating that they have cut the prices with effect from November 15, but reiterated it yesterday post communication coming in from the government. But the October GST data, that one shows improvement in tax compliance, and the GST Council wants this momentum to continue. In an exclusive interaction with Shireen Bhan, Sushil Kumar Modi, the member of the GST Council, said that now the emphasis is on simplification of the return filing mechanism and further rate rationalization, and will happen only in the next financial year.
Realistically, I personally feel that it will take time, because from 1st of July, GST was launched, and more than 300 items have been reduced from one slab to another slab. Because the financial year is coming to an end. 31st March is the closing for this financial year. So I think in the next 3-4 months, we will see about the buoyancy of the revenue, then about the rates also, how much revenue we are getting. So all these things will be taken care of, and then we will think in the next financial year